Welcome along to Tweet Street Scotland Occupied, home of the satirical satire. I'm Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter. Tonight it's our February Parents Forum, Not With My Child. I'm joined this evening, first of all, for Lucy, for Parents Across Scotland. Hi Lucy, how are you doing?
I'm not bad at all, Peter, thanks. How you doing?
All right. Thanks very much for joining us. I know that you're really busy. And we'll get into obviously there's a lot of developing situations, and we need to I would like to mention to the people of Ukraine and also the innocent victims of what's going to be the first war in Europe since the World War II. It's worrying times. So to all the innocent victims in Ukraine, Russia and around the world, there's a lot of focus being placed on this by the UK media, which baffles me, because you've got things that are happening in Saudi Arabia and Yemen and Israel with Palestine that don't get any news. But that seems to be because they're funded by, the arms are funded by or are delivered by UK government to these regimes. But it doesn't make it any easier for the innocent victims of war. So our thoughts go out to all people that are going through it in a minute. Right, so to go on with what we're talking about, so this is our February Parents Forum. January's was received well, so it's picking up a wee bit on each forum that we do. This one we're going to be talking about some of the things that have been happening in Scotland, worrying things that are happening in Scotland with regards to unisex toilets in schools. And there was something that happened over the past few days where a school's invited, or maybe you can explain it better, Lucy.
Yep.
So on you go, you guys, whatever you can about the...
Yeah, so it's a school in Scotland. I'm not going to name them because I've contacted them privately, and I think just to give them the opportunity to actually speak to us about it, it would be unfair to blast their name everywhere, but people who were involved in it will know. But it was just random. The other day we were just on Twitter, and next minute I'm getting notifications from concerned parents saying, like, what's going on with this school. So I went and just looked at it, and basically what they've done is for their LGBT History Month, because obviously we're still in LGBT History Month, they put out a tweet that had their wall in school covered in like LGBT anti-information, which is absolutely fine. I just want to stress that I've got no issue with like that getting taught. I think I welcome it. It's appropriate as long as it's age appropriate. But the concern was that they put up as a role model this non-binary, is a man, person who his name's Alok Masson, I think his surname is, but he's basically, they've put him up as a role model, and the concerns that were being raised by parents were the fact that this person is quite notorious, and I didn't realise how notorious until I done a tweet on it, and I've just been inundated with people from all around the world contacting us about the inappropriateness of this person. But the issue is basically that he has I laugh when I say this because it's just so unbelievably bizarre that this is happening, and schools are picking up on it and using it inappropriately. But he basically said that there's no such thing as an innocent little girl. All little girls are kinky, little girls are deviant. He said that he was a little girl, so he knows this. Now, this is a man with a beard who just wears obviously makeup, and he calls himself non-binary. But this school had this man as a role model on their wall for their pupils. So obviously parents were just instantly a bit concerned about it. And the child protection lawyer Sarah Phillimore, she'd commented really politely and asked them like why they'd used this person, and they blocked her. So that immediately got my sort of alarm bells going, like, why are you blocking concerns that are being raised? And a parent whose child is actually attending the school contacted me asking about the best way to deal with it. So I've contacted the school privately, because just really what we're wanting to understand is how this happened. Was there any research carried out into that, like who you were putting up as role models in your school? Like, we just want parents to be able to feel confident in approaching their child's school with safeguarding concerns, because schools should actually welcome that, and they should welcome engagement from parents. And it's just worrying when you see a school starting to block safeguarding questions that are being asked.
This is the person here, Alok Vaid
The
Menon.
Alok Vaid Menon, that's the one, yeah. I mean, look at the language that he's using there. It's
very,
there are no princesses, little girls are also kinky, your kids aren't as straight and narrow as you think.
It's that pushing queer theory. For me, it's trying to sexualize underage kids.
No, that's a definite worry. I mean, it's if a child, like, my concern is if a child in the school, which they do, they'll go and look up information, they'll go and look up these people if they've not already done it, and they find that sort of content. And that's not the only concern. There's been other concerns about this person as well. There's loads of YouTube videos I would recommend. Like, people, they go and look at Blair White. She's a trans woman who has covered this person quite extensively about the concerns and the red flags that are brought up with the sort of content that he puts out. So how can parents be assured that this isn't going to happen again in the school, or it isn't going to happen elsewhere? Because really what we're worried about is that the guidance that's in schools just now, and the guidance that schools are getting, is promoting this ideology as fact. It's not promoting it as a belief system, which it absolutely is a belief system that's based on no reality. It's not grounded in any reality, and they're uncritically accepting this information as fact without any due diligence, without looking into any further. And that's a concern when it's a school that's doing that. Their safeguarding protocol should be, we need to check out the people that we are putting out in promotion for children before we do it, and we should be working with parents who are concerned about it without just dismissing any concerns.
Yeah, I mean, because from my understanding of it, and the worrying thing is, if the GRA that's due to be introduced, and I think it's the 3rd of March they're talking about it now, if that's going to be enforced, you're then going to have all these issues that will spill down onto kids. And we've already seen instances in the press of the mention of reducing the age of consent to 13. The Scottish Government are talking about that. You've then got, as you say, the ideology that this is getting passed as fact, when in actual fact it's just lies. People are lying to make people with a mental illness feel good about themselves, when in actual fact they should be addressing the mental illness, as far as I'm concerned, because you can't change your sex. It's impossible. You're born in the right body. Yeah, you're born in the right body. There's no such thing as you're born in the wrong body, or you're born with a female brain or a male brain. You're born as you are. And to argue against those facts, those immutable facts, then you have a mental illness. I mean, if you can't accept who you are for what you are. So it's very concerning, especially when you've got these mentions of things in the press about lowering the age of consent, because there's also been mention of, and this is going back to previous people that I've looked at blogs, etc., that have been very reliable, that tell you that, well, this was the SNP's plan. SNP and Greens is the government here now, and the Greens are pushing it. They're suspending people for their party, members of their party, for holding beliefs that they feel is transphobic, and the beliefs that they hold are that it's protected in law, is that women's rights are a protection under the Equality Act. So to try and wheedle your way in there by the GRA. I mean, I know it takes us away from the Not With My Child. However, these are things that our children are potentially going to be educated in. They're going to be.
So it's all entangled together. It is.
So trying to kind of separate them to keep with the child side and women's rights. They all intertwine. So you've got to kind of mention these things and what the concerns are. Because I know that of late there was the For Women Scotland had taken Scottish Government to court. And the legal definition of a male is was it adult human
a natal male.
Natal born male, that's it. And a female is a natal born female, which is good in the respect of you've got some sort of officialdom of law telling you that that's fact. But then on the flip side of that, with the Fair Play for Women today, who were at court to do with the census, I believe theirs was centred around the census that's to be coming out towards the end of March, or the middle to end of March is the date for that.
I believe it's the 22nd of March, I'm sure.
It's due to come out where you can identify as you feel, which makes a mockery of what's happened last week before Women Scotland. Although Joanna Cherry was following on Twitter, Joanna Cherry says that in her honest opinion that the ruling of For Women Scotland, because it was the inner house. See, this is the terms that I'm kind of don't know the outer house and the inner house, because it was the inner house, and it was judged over by three judges or three people that sit on the board, the panel, to decide that would overrule the census one today. Again, it's early days and all that. We'll find out over the course of time.
Do you know what it is? It's basically, so the For Women Scotland ruling, the reason that Joanna thinks, or the reason I think Joanna thinks that that's going to be a bit more, a bit stronger in standing, is because the Scottish Government attempted to redefine the word woman for no other reason than to include transgender women, which obviously we know under their sex they are male, and if they don't hold a GRC then legally they are male as well. So they tried to change a definition that is within the Equality Act as a protected characteristic. The Equality Act defines what sex is. As you said, it's a natal male, natal-born male, and a natal-born female. The issue with the census one is that the 1920 Census Act doesn't have a definition of sex. Therefore, that's how they've been able to get around that, and that's why Fair Play for Women lost their appeal. But we're in a really bizarre position where we've got two separate laws apparently like clashing with each other, and we've got Scotland having a different definition of sex when they're gathering data from the rest of the UK. So we're in this position where we're going to have data which is not going to be accurate, because if people can self-define what they are on the census, and there already is a question that asks people about their gender identity, so it's not that, but I think it's really important to record like what people identify as, because we need a snapshot of time, and that's what our society is at the minute, is people identifying as different things. But we must also have accurate data gathering on the sex of somebody in order to like maintain our services, single sex services, to maintain all of the things that go along with that. And I don't understand how we're going to get at if people are able to lie about their sex on a census. It's just absolutely bizarre.
I was just checking something there as you were saying that, Lucy. I mean, talking about the 1920 census, and I could be getting my dates wrong here. It was 1918 that women over 30 gained the right to vote within the United Kingdom. So legislation, etc., might have been a wee bit slow in getting developed, and that's why sex wasn't included. But we never had the Equality Act back then. We do now.
Exactly.
And the Equality Act, I think, would, again, not being a legal, would supersede the 1920s information for the census.
Well,
Again,
remember the other issue is that there's been an amendment to the 1920 Act by the Scottish Government in 2019 to include sexual orientation and transgender identity. So that's where, excuse me, that's what they're using. They're using that amendment. And it's relevant and it's right that they gather that information because, as I said, we need to see what's going on in our society at this point.
Mhm.
But what we're not understanding is how they were able to do that, like have that information to gather on people's identity, but still say that they could lie about their sex. Why not just have them both? It's absolutely silly.
Again, being very suspicious and always having safeguarding in mind, I just see the danger in this full carry on with the Scottish Government. They're working to a Stonewall agenda. I mean, there's all these people celebrating being in the top 100 for Stonewall. Politicising police and fire services and hospital is a sure way for things to go awry. I mean, everybody's included within these services, so why target it politically by being in a Stonewall Fair Play League? Do they then have targets
Totally.
for, oh well, we need to go out and arrest so many straight people, we need to go and arrest so many gay people, so many lesbians, so many trans, to match up their stats so that they're looking at being inclusive and keeping everything even? But again, that's for a different podcast altogether.
But yeah, I mean, if you're in a tolerant society, you would surely expect that every employer is able to treat everybody fairly and equally without having to sign up to a Stonewall or any other sort of ladder scheme. But see, just on the same subject, but on the side of kids, Peter, I think the organisation is called Teach First. Teaching First.
Yeah, I seen that
and they're
today.
a big organisation, and they tweeted out, "Oh, we're so happy to be on Stonewall's 100." And for me, it's there's kids being bullied in school in Scotland for not agreeing or going along with gender ideology. Teachers are struggling to manage this. Head teachers are struggling to manage this. Kids are suffering because of this. But as long as they feel proud that they managed to climb a ladder, we just ignore everything else that's going on for kids. It's just the priorities are completely wrong. I've got priorities back to front at a minute, and it's kids that are suffering because of it.
Aye, well, I mean that's what we're doing these things for. It's because we're looking to try and safeguard kids wherever we can. No, I'm going to play a wee clip. This was one of the background team reading out somebody else's words. It's I don't know. You'll probably have heard of Disc Critic, who does the Wishcraft tag on Twitter. So it's this blog that we're going to be reading now. These are Disc Critic's own words. So if you guys,
I'm speaking on behalf of Disc Critic. Her voice is really powerful. She speaks on behalf of her vulnerable daughter, who has a right to same-sex care. She writes, "Life changed significantly when my daughter was born. It's a girl, but I was told I might experience grief, and I did. Being told my child had a significant disability that would affect her learning, that was the most difficult thing that I have ever had to hear. Mourning for the baby I had expected to have was compounded by the fear and the worry that set in quickly for the baby that I was holding in my arms. I now had responsibilities that extended beyond my own lifetime. Knowing that your child will grow up to be an adult who's vulnerable is a terrifying prospect. It means entrusting society with that which is most precious to you. Even as I write that sentence, I feel the weight of fear creeping into my stomach once more. Early on, what did to some extent allay those fears for my daughter's future was believing that we lived in a country that for the most part was compassionate and had the NHS as well as social work services. We were lucky in that respect, I reassured myself. At no point, while I was coming to terms with how my daughter's future was set to unfold, did I expect to find myself in a position where I'd be forced to remind my elected representatives about something as basic as my vulnerable daughter's need for same-sex care. Anxieties about her having to endure acts of negligence or maybe even cruelty at the hands of an unprofessional person once I am gone have haunted some of my sleepless nights. However, I've been consoled with the knowledge that regulations and safeguarding policies would be in place to offer her protection from bad actors. But what happens when somewhere along the line, the differences between the sexes become artificially blurred and the safeguarding that was in place can no longer be relied upon because of proposed reforms to current law? What happens when the result of this blurring means a man can say he's a woman, and suddenly your daughter's boundaries cannot be as fixed, her dignity as intact, and her privacy as guaranteed? What do you do then? Maybe you write to your MSP to express your disbelief at your government's broadening of the definition of the word woman to include men. You think, once you've reminded them your daughter deserves the right now and in the future to receive intimate care from a same-sex practitioner, that your elected representative could not possibly disagree. Maybe you attempt to discuss the issue on social media with other elected representatives, because it's just not possible that under these circumstances, they would be anything other than understanding. However, you're not expecting what does happen. The gaslighting that follows, a mumbo jumbo of words that suggest your daughter's physical reality is usurped by the mere thoughts in a grown man's head. You do not expect to be told by those in authority that the impossible is now possible, black is white, lies are truth, and men can be women. He thinks it, therefore she is. So now you know your politicians are seriously suggesting someone with a penis can self-ID as a woman without any medical gatekeeping. What then? You're grateful for the courageous women and the fabulous women's organisations who have fought this battle before you, and you try to play your part in some small way by spreading the word about this conflict of rights. You fight back with ribbons, buying yards of the stuff in purple, green and white, the colour of the suffragettes used for over 100 years, and tie them to lampposts and trees and railings. You post pictures on social media with the hashtag Women Won't Reached, hoping to reach the women who are still in the dark, because you know when they find out what self-ID really means, they too will be outraged. They too will find it unacceptable that their daughter's boundaries are being eroded. You also find there are lots of other women, slate women, sticker women, all finding ways to spread the word that women's sex-based rights are in jeopardy. And it gives you hope, and you keep going. Life changed significantly when my beautiful, industrious, caring daughter was born. She's a girl, she'll be a woman. She will be a woman who requires same-sex care, no buts.
That's critics' words. And I don't mind saying this. I had read this through before we'd spoke about this in our chat that we were going to try and do this. I'd read this through before on several occasions. However, when Lustra was reading it out in the record, because I don't know if it was maybe the female voice, I'd actually excused myself at the end of it. It really got me. And you're thinking about, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking about, I'm fortunate in my circumstances. My kids don't require the care other than the care that they apparently they don't have any life-changing disabilities or whatever the correct terminology is. So for me as a parent, my worries are just that, oh well, I hope that they'll be all right. We teach them right for wrong. You try and do the good parent bit and tell them, keep them, I mean, with the exception of the Easter Bunny and Tooth Fairy and things like that, and Santa when they're young, you try and keep them abreast with information that's relevant to them, and so that they're making the best way. When you've got the additional worry of knowing that you're the main carer for your child and that's the way it's going to be until you die, and then somebody else is going to inherit that, it makes me want to scream. Actually, it makes me want to scream. Like, is somebody listening here? Because I don't think anybody is. Because we darling Patreon, who's running for council in Dundee, in one of the Dundee wards, we had him on the Not With My Child last month, and then we had him on again talking about he's running for council because of the GRA and the impact that it's going to have on people who require same-sex services or services that require same-sex care. What's your thoughts on it, Lucy?
I mean, I totally agree with you. It kind of brought a lump to my throat just hearing it being read out as well. It kind of puts a wee bit more power behind the words when you hear it spoken in that way. And I think this critic's very, very brave to share our daughter's story and to share the impact that this worry is having on her just now, because that is all she'll be doing. As you said, Peter, just being parents of children without disabilities and without additional needs and without the additional support that comes with it is worry enough in this time, in this society and in the situations that we're facing. But to have that additional worry on top of it is just, it's unimaginable how much stress must be on them. And I think it's important, when you were saying about Alan there, I think it's important to address this point that continuously gets thrown at us when we ask about single-sex services and about the impact on women and children. And we get told that the GRA reform bill is simply an administrative change and it's not going to impact any of these single-sex services, which includes single-sex care for disabled children. We have to remember that. But it's important to remember that the issue is that we know that the GRA doesn't control single-sex services. That's down to the Equality Act. But right now, organisations in Scotland are absolutely terrified to implement the exemptions within the Equality Act in a way that ensures we have access to these single-sex services. So we know it feels sometimes like it's a bit of a gotcha that's thrown at us, like, you're missing the point, you're misinformed, the GRA has got nothing to do with single-sex services. Well, we're not stupid, we know that the GRA isn't directly related to single-sex services in that way, but because of the misinformation that's out there at a minute, and because of the silencing and the no debate mantra that we've heard, organisations do not enact the Equality Act the way that it should be, and that is impacting on single-sex services that this critic was talking about there. Now imagine being a parent in that position, and when you're trying to ask questions about the safeguarding of your extremely vulnerable child, to hear from our politicians, to hear from those that are supposed to be representing us, tell us that you don't know what you're talking about, your concerns aren't valid, it's not related in any way. Well, actually no, it is related, and it's their children, and we've got a duty of care to them. So don't tell us not to worry about it when you can't provide us with the answers about how you're going to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to look very far. I mean, they say what happens over in the States, it happens over here 5-10 years later, right? We're 5 years behind the curve, so to speak. Now, this is already happening in the States. This is already happening in Canada. The things that are going on in these countries, and Scotland is the next on the, if you follow the conspiracy theories, the World Economic Forum chart that Klaus Schwab and his Great Reset are in Canada and with Canada with. So, I mean, you need to look at these things and you try and do your best to investigate and safeguard. Just really, as you would if your kid, there was a new person moved into the street and your kid was playing with their kid and they wanted to go and stay with them and things like that, you would be like, well, hold on, wait, no, let's find out who this person is first. Let's find out a wee bit about them and do your own safeguarding. I mean, that you're not being transphobic then, you're not being bigoted then, you're being a parent then, and your main interest. And a lot of these people that are making decisions are either they don't have kids, or the kids that they do have are all transitioning. I mean, that screams oh well, hold on, I've failed as a parent and I'm not a parent, so let's fuck up everybody else. Sorry for swearing. Let's mess up everybody else. Because we never get the chance to do it, or when we did get the chance to do it, we didn't do it right. So let's make everybody else look as bad as us. That's what I see from these things, and know the fact that, well, you're being overprotective for your child. But my kids can go out and look after themselves in the streets. That's like what you bring. That's how I brought mine up. They can go and look after themselves in schools if they need to have a conversation with a teacher, if they need to have a conversation with an adult. But you've got some people who, for one reason or another, they may not be as confident. They may be those the quiet ones that seem to get excluded. And we spoke about this, or I've spoken about it in previous podcasts as well, Lucy, about bullying and how they include people by excluding them. So then they exclude them for the gang. They feel as if, well, hold on, how do I get into that gang? Oh, well, I'll just become like those. And we went through, I mean, I went through it in school, that, oh, I really want to be hanging about with they ones, but they don't want to be hanging about with me. Right, what can I do to go and hang about with them? And there's times in your life when you're insecure about one thing or another. And sometimes it's about who you are as a person, or where you see your future as you get older and you start looking at jobs and things like that. You're like, well, how do I work my way to get to where I want to be? All I can see is obstacles getting put in the way for families, for inclusion with your family. Everything's keep it a secret. Don't tell this, don't tell that. You've got the right to do this for the age of 4. I mean, my kid thought he was Captain America until he was 8. You know what I mean? Cutting about with the superhero outfit and the daft shield thing that he had.
No, but I think it's a fair point, and it always comes back to the fact that this is a belief. Gender ideology is a belief that we are all being forced to buy into. You wouldn't see it with anything else. You wouldn't force somebody to believe in your religion. You can't force somebody to believe in your religion. It's like my kids go to a non-denominational school. I grew up as a Catholic. I went to Catholic schools, and I decided, you know what, I'll let them make their own decision. Now, they'll get religious education in school, which is fine, but it covers a whole array of things, so you're not just getting the one thing. If I found out that by putting them in a non-denominational school that they were then being taught a specific religion as being fact, I would have a question about that. This is exactly the same thing, but because we're in this discourse with our politicians and our government are not helping reduce the toxicity, they're actually adding to it, in my opinion. But because we're in this current discourse, what would be normal questions for a parent to ask are being branded as peril clutching, as bigoted, as transphobic, it's not inclusive. That's the message that's out there just now. Parents are going to go, do you know what, I'm not even going to raise these questions. I'm not going to ask because I don't want to put a target on myself or my child. So safeguarding it's at its core being attacked, because if parents don't feel comfortable in raising questions, how will things ever be addressed? So I think we need to get back to a situation where we normalise asking questions again.
Yeah.
We've got to. I've been putting out on Twitter, and I've just kind of, I suppose, lost my senses with it a wee bit, because I've just been like, I do not care anymore. I am going to ask these questions directly, because we can't be in a situation any longer. It's far too dangerous for us to not be able to ask questions about safeguarding our children. There's absolutely no way that I'm going to let that situation go on for any longer than what we've already got, because it's dangerous for children. And I'm not being a peril clutcher, I'm not being extreme. I work in safeguarding, I know what the signs are, and we spoke about grooming. And my other concern, sorry, I'm on a rant, but my other concern is that the grooming side of it as well. One of the signs, you'll remember when we were speaking to Dr. M, one of the signs of grooming
I was
is
going
to
to come
look
back
out
to
for.
that, but on you go.
Oh, were you?
Aye, on you go. That just fits in perfectly. Aye, on you go.
But what it is one of the signs to look out for of grooming is changes in a child's behaviour. So a younger child acting sexualised above their years. How do we spot that anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Because the society that our children are being brought up in is so absolutely seeping in sexualisation.
Yep.
They're being asked sexualised questions. They're being told that they've got these labels that, what was it, asexual means you're not attracted to somebody in a sexual way.
Yep.
You've got what Dr. M said, 11-year-olds who are asexual leave rooms for 11-year-olds who are not. So these sort of labels and positions that children are put in just now all scream to me about grooming. And I'm so concerned that we're going to remove the ability for safeguarders and responsible parents and other just normal people, citizens that see it, from being able to actually spot it, because children are being sexualised younger and younger and younger, and we'll not be able to spot changes in their behaviour because it's just there all the time. And it's so concerning.
I mean, a number of these people that support this ideology and queer theory, the people that these folk look to are what's his name? I think with Foucault, the French, he's part of the academia there, and he had a penchant for young boys, and they look to these people as, well, these are groundbreakers. Well, no, they were wrongins. That's what they were. They were wrongins then. They're wrongins now.
It's that guy Money, isn't it? I can't remember his first name either, but his surname's Money, and I think he was something to do with this sort of revolution of gender reassignment and sex changes, and it turned out that he was also quite a prolific paedophile.
Well, I mean, when I'd said we was going to speak about the Dr. M podcast. I mean, Dr. M is absolutely amazing, and the research that she's done is fascinating, given the fact that she's got a brain injury and how she still goes into the detail that she does. So, I mean, the things that she said really struck a chord with me, because you get these people, they always seem to be the chap next door, or the good person that's done so much within the community. But I mean, let's hold up Jimmy Savile to that. Oh, aye, he had a television programme, he was knighted, he did everything. Supported by a Tory government, supported by Westminster, and there you go, £12 million paid by the monarchy to get Prince Andrew off of his rape of a minor, because that's what it is. Let's not beat about the bush. So I mean, you've got all these things creeping in that's getting normalised, and parents are getting, as you say, I don't want to be classed as this, but I've got concerns about that, and these are my concerns. But I don't want to be classed as what all of these people. And you notice it seems to be the strong people, the uncancelable people that they try and go for. And J.K. Rowling's a perfect example. Try to cancel her, and even try to get people to imagine the Harry Potter series without J.K. Rowling having written it. I mean, but look, stupid things like that. You've got Adele saying at the thing award. I don't know why I mentioned it, but it's the end of the day, that's rubbish. So she said that she was a woman, she was a female artist, which was good. And then she got jumped on again, like by all of these men who are trying to pretend to be a woman and know what it's like to be a woman. No, you don't. You're delusional. Right, anyway, we digress. But this is the insanity of it. It's the point where you're going, nah, that can't be right. Like, no. And before you know it, it's right, and you're having to start doing the hill instead of starting on a level playing field. You know what I mean? You're pushing.
And before you know it, you've got 11-year-olds in school falling out with their friends and their family and talking about dead naming. And for anybody that doesn't know, because a few people didn't, I thought it was quite a commonly understood term, but dead naming basically means if you're basically using a child's birth name as opposed to their now new chosen name. And this is happening in schools in Scotland.
Aye,
because this has just all been uncritically accepted as fact, and it's not fact.
I'll need to say to wee Captain America, my youngest, know what I mean? No, you're Captain America. I'm trying to joke about it, but it's a serious issue. It's something that's scary as a parent. And I look at the age of my kids and I go, thank goodness, I was going to swear there, thank goodness I've not got newborn children that I've still to take to school. My youngest is at the high school age, and I've still got concerns about going to high school for this sole reason. Even though I try and we try and keep as normal as possible and factual as possible, I still get concerns because I know what I was like when I went to high school. I'm no proud of this, but I get in with a gang of people in high school that ran about with knives because I'd never seen knives before. And it was like, oh, what's this? Oh, this is dangerous. Until one of them attempted to use it, then that was oh my God, I'm the one to do with this. And you are influenced at that age. You just want to be a part of I don't mean a gang, a part of a group, a part of like a brotherhood, sisterhood type thing with girls, like people.
You want to be included.
Yeah, people that you know that, well, oh, they think the same as me. We're in the same singing for the same hymn sheet. And you go back to the stereotypical things. Oh, well, they like football. I like football. They like this. They like that. And it's the things that you've got in common with people. And I think
but see, this generation, they've not got that, haven't they? No,
they haven't. I think with this generation, the thing that they're appearing to have been given in common is this ideology. And that's the dangerous thing as parents, as citizens, as human beings. We're going to have we've got a mental health epidemic backing up as it is at the minute. In a generation from now, it's going to be absolutely atrocious if this is allowed to continue as has been floated. And this is why we're doing things like this, I suppose, to try and raise awareness, to try and get people out. Because we've got the elections coming up in May, the 5th of May, the local council elections. And through having an understanding of the political situation in Scotland, council chambers can do a lot of good for things like this. We can, by electing the right people, because I know that we thought that they elected the right people again as independence and again as whatever extras you wanted for Scotland. I mean, for me, it's always independence, independence first. But there's no independence without taking a society that's willing to be independent, and that includes women and children. And in the society that we're in at the minute, this is what I thought we were pushing for. It seems to have been usurped by bad faith actors and people that are trying to, excuse me, try to corrupt our society as we know it. And we've got to stand up and say, well, you're not going to get away with just as easy as what you think. We've a look at the likes of some of the football clubs and the historical child abuse at some of the football clubs in Scotland. If you look further afield, and Dr. M mentioned this, Barry Bennell down at Manchester City. So there's these people that work their way into positions of power and influence that younger people have caught the wrong way, or caught at the wrong time, the wrong moment in their life, or could be seriously damaged or harmed for the rest of their life.
Well, it
Mental
creates
harm or
that
physical.
imbalance of power, doesn't it? When you've got somebody in a position of trust, and then you're kind of giving them unfettered access, in the sense of, you can keep a secret with me, which is never been allowed before, and it shouldn't. It just should not be allowed. But I don't know if you've seen, Peter, something called a transition closet that's started to crop up in schools across America, and it's basically where they have a wardrobe full of clothes, and a child can come in, don't tell their parents, change out of the clothes that they're wearing to school, change into clothes of the opposite sex, and use different names and stuff, and the teacher is keeping this a secret from parents, basically. So that's just one example, and I know it's an American example, but it's something that's happening, and it's totally inappropriate.
Well, we're told that there was no minors had their breasts removed in Scotland. Well, of course, that might be fact. However, they were sent from Scotland south of the border to have these operations.
Yes.
And it's over 50 at last count. And I've got no doubt that will be creeping up and creeping up and creeping up, and we'll only become aware of these things in 6 months or a year or whenever. We'll also have.
Sorry.
No, you go. When you go.
It was just directly related to what you were talking about there with the double mastectomies. Did you see the recent? It was just yesterday. The Society for Evidence-Based Gender Care for Children.
Is that from the Swedish one? Is that the Swedish? Yes, I did see that.
Basically, Sweden have carried out this review because they started they basically started to get evidence that showed that affirmative care. So basically, a child declares, decides that they're the opposite sex, and they're immediately affirmed, as this new phase seems to be promoting. They're immediately affirmed, yeah, you're a boy. That's it. There's no questions really we need to ask. And the evidence started to come in that showed actually these children were being significantly harmed because they were being sent down a medical pathway. The harm that was coming to them was physical harm. They were experiencing really, really bad side effects from it. So basically, Sweden have done a complete U-turn in the care that they offer minors with gender dysphoria, and that they are now saying, unless it is the extreme last resort, medicalisation of minors will not be offered, and therapy needs to be offered first. And that's so significant when you think about Scotland and what you were saying about the children being referred for double mastectomies, when you've got actually this massive organisation from a country like Sweden coming out and saying, we've carried out a review into this, and actually it's causing harm to children. And we're still going down that pathway of recommending this.
I mean, Sweden are quite a liberal country. At the best of times, their society is similar to ours. And you would hope with the amount of professional bodies that are coming out, and this coming from Sweden as well, the fact that it's being carried out by professional bodies, would add weight to the concerns that are already being voiced here in Scotland. However, they don't appear to be having an impact on the government of the day. I need to say that, but you would think that with all the alarm bells ringing and the potential for court and having to go and stand in a court of law, that they would bow to this, especially given the fact that in the last survey that I've seen, I'll go the broad spectrum. So you were between 71 and 80% against the introduction of the GRA and the form that the Scottish Government are trying to bring it in. So, I mean, That's a significant chunk of the society, the electorate within Scotland, that are going to be worked against by people with no kids, in the most part, and people with kids who are transitioning through these issues, these mental health issues that they've got. We can only hope that that's going to add weight and make the changes that we are hoping for. Well, I'm certainly hoping for it anyway, and I don't suppose you'd be any different. We've been parents across Scotland, you know, the fact that you're representing obviously yourself and your own family, but the wider community of Scotland that are coming in and entrusting you with sensitive information. Aye, so just before we finish up then, as we say, the hope that we've got is that the professional bodies for other countries with the investigations and results that they're coming back with would have an influence here in Scotland. But we just need to make sure that we're voting at the council elections for people that have your best interests. And you'll see a lot of people coming out saying that they're women's rights, kids' rights, whatever the case may be. So make sure you're looking. Don't ever vote Tory or any of the unionist parties, whatever he's doing, you know what I mean? But vote for an independent supporting councillor or candidate that's running for council, or an independent. Don't need to be attached to a party. I've got your family, yours and your family's best interests at heart. Is there anything you would like to add before we finish up?
Just one thing actually, and it's slightly off topic, but just quickly, is obviously we were speaking at the beginning there about the Fair Play for Women losing the appeal for the Scottish census. If we could just ask everybody to make sure that you get a paper copy of your census this year for you and all of your family, and more details will be available at some point with regards to how this is going to move forward. But we're just wanting to ask everybody to get a paper copy. That's essential. Cool.
A paper copy of the census, right? I'll be sure to do my order for it. Well, with that, given that, I think we've covered enough for February's parent forum. We'll be back in March for a special kind of a Mother's Day approach to the Parents Forum for March, and try and send that resounding message to the Scottish Government that we support Scotland, we support the best of Scotland and what's best for Scotland. And I don't see what you're doing as beneficial to Scotland or anybody in it. That's just my thoughts. But
we want Scotland to be the best place for our children to grow up, the same way that the government have claimed that they want Scotland to be the best place for children to grow up. It will never be a best place for children to grow up if their parents are ignored and dismissed. Exactly. If our voices are silenced, then this is not going to be a good place for our children to grow up. There's been a promise made as well to care experienced children, that they will get love and care and absolutely appropriately as they should. There needs to be a promise to all other children as well, and not just select groups of children. And I think we need to be driving that message home that unless the promise is made to all children that they will get the best possible care, then we're failing. Aye,
and on that note, we live in hope rather than fear. So it's good night for Lucy, for parents across Scotland, for myself, Cinnamon Bridges, for Tweet Street, for the Satirical Saltire, and for the Not With My Child Parent Forum for February. We'll say good night for now.